NeoSystems offers a wide variety of product and service offerings to assist our clients in managing their back office and growing their business. Please welcome Brad Mitchell, Vice President of Technology Solutions at NeoSystems, who will share information about Concur Expense as well as the connector that NeoSystems has built for a seamless integration with Costpoint. Brad?
Thank you, Don. Trying to get my camera on here. Hello, everyone. As Don mentioned, I am Brad Mitchell. I am Vice President of Technology Solutions here at NeoSystems. I work with all the previous presenters and the future presenters you'll see on this. And you'll notice that we're talking a lot today about kind of web-based solutions that especially customers that use Costpoint a lot can kind of leverage to do various things. And the one I'm going to talk about is Concur, and specifically the Concur connector that NeoSystems has developed to interface with Concur. I'm going to share my screen here. And just a little bit of information about Concur. So I assume most of you are interested in this presentation here are probably Concur users. Those of you not familiar with Concur, this is a product offered by SAP. Concur is a very robust spend management, expense reporting system that allows companies to track basically employee expenses. It's somewhat of a competitor to Deltek Expense for those of you that use those, which is an adequate system as well. Concur has a lot of features that customers find very useful. Again, very detailed kind of spend management. It can see where your expenses are originating from, how you can kind of manage those better. It has a lot of great integrations for travel. So almost all of the major travel providers across the different methods integrate with it well. And kind of the story SAP likes to tell is, you know, there was the person that founded Concur spent, you know, a couple weeks out on the road one time and got back and spent the entire weekend just filling out expense reports. So they really tried to focus when he founded Concur with some of his friends on trying to get a very smooth system, well-integrated system that makes it easy for employees to create expense reports and for companies to process those expense reports. So what we did here at NeoSystems, we use Concur ourselves. Again, it's a web-based system, just like the other ones we've been talking about prior. And we developed a product to actually interface with Concur for those customers that use Deltek Costpoint. So our product is certified by SAP Concur. Sorry, I'm losing my web share here. There we go. We got certified by SAP Concur back in 2019, and we've deployed this product for a number of customers. What we utilize here is we actually interface with Costpoint. Longtime Costpoint users back in the client server days, Costpoint 6 and before, got very excited about Costpoint 7 because it added a number of great features to Costpoint, two of them in particular being extensibility and web services. Marty talked a little bit prior about web services, but extensibility actually allows you to enhance the Costpoint system and conform it to process flows that you might have unique that does not work with out-of-the-box functionality of Costpoint. And we're going to walk through in the demo here a little bit more what that looks like. The other nice feature that Costpoint 7 and above added was web services. And this is the ability to interface into Costpoint to pull data or push data out of Costpoint to exchange with other systems. So as a Concur user ourselves here at NeoSystems, we wanted to develop a product for ourselves and then also for external customers that can kind of do that automation for you. In Concur, there's a number of things you have to set up to support expense reports for employees, obviously. You need your employees in the system. You need lists of what they can choose for their expense report, both expense types and for example, the Costpoint projects you would want them to charge to. And so we developed this application to push that information from Costpoint over to Concur for the initial setup and pull information back over into Costpoint when you're ready to actually create expense reports, and then further to notify Concur when there are expense reports have been paid. So the employees are kind of always on up to date as to where the various steps stand for their expense reporting. So just again, a couple features of the Neo Concur Connect product. We do use extensibility to add new screens into the system, new applications, and also we modify existing screens so that they support some of the functionality that we need. We use the web services to push and pull data from SAP, again, to put that employee information, list information, and cost object approver information into Concur. And then we use web services also to pull information back into Costpoint to get the reporting done. Unfortunately, not all the information that we need currently to push into Concur is accessible via APIs or web services, terms often used interchangeably. So we do have the ability to push SFTP files. Those of you using Concur now probably have this process set up manually. We can also automate that as well so we can get the full suite of information that we have to have over there. And one thing to note, extensibility really does work on top of Costpoint. It really, Deltek designed it very well to look like it's integrated into the system. It uses the existing Costpoint security models, user interface profiles, security groups, employee security. All of that is utilized for extensibility to deploy the Concur Connect product and have it fall into the same type of security models that you currently use in the system. So talking a little bit more detail about the flow of the Concur Connect product. So here you see on this diagram, pretty simple diagram on the upper left, our Costpoint application and database, and the lower right would be our SAP Concur application. Again, we need a few basic things to get into the system so that employees can enter expense reports. The first being the employees themselves. So those of you familiar with Concur are familiar with the 305 file, they call it on SAP Concur. And so we push the equivalent of that 305 file from Costpoint over to the Concur application. We also push the list file. So we support both project workforce and non-project workforce lists over in Concur. So a lot of clients with Costpoint will have an employee workforce established for all of their projects. So employees can only select specific projects they have been assigned to. We support that. And we also support those companies that have no project workforce lists. So if you just need a project list over there that employees can choose from, we support that as well. We also are in the process of getting certified with the Costpoint payment confirmation. So this will put through and confirm to the employee that the voucher was actually paid in Costpoint. That's the other box that you see on the screen there. And then from the Concur application itself back to Costpoint, we obviously are pulling the information we need to create expense reports. So currently we support the standard accounting extract. Again, those of you familiar with Concur, it's called the SAE. This is a file that you're probably using now if you're using Concur and you're mapping manually to what a Costpoint expense report should look like. So we can automate the pull of that SAE and put it into Costpoint using various mapping screens, which I'll walk through in the demo, and then create an AP voucher. And we actually offer two ways to create the AP voucher. We can create an AP preprocessor file. So this is the normal screen in Costpoint where your AP group probably today goes in and creates a bunch of AP vouchers, or we can utilize Costpoint web services to actually push directly into the AP voucher screen. Almost all of our current customers that are on this use the web service interface because from the import screen in Costpoint, you can directly put it into the voucher screen as an unposted voucher. And yes, it will have to go through all of the normal approval processes that you might have set up in Costpoint in order to get approved and ultimately posted into the system. One thing to note is all of these processes, again, since this is really looks and feels like native Costpoint functionality, all of these processes can be scheduled with a job server. So we have clients that have this deployed that on a regular basis will create the automated export of the employees and the projects to go on a regular basis throughout the day. So every couple hours, every 4 hours, overnight if they don't want it as often, that's set up and scheduled in the normal Costpoint job server and pushed over to Concur. So really, once any initial setup as employees added to a workforce, a new project is present, then it's going to flow automatically over there with no input from the user. We can also schedule the SAE to come in overnight. SAP currently processes SAE files on a nightly basis, and we can schedule that to be pulled in and ready for processing when your AP staff gets in the morning as well. One thing I want to highlight here, a new feature in SAP Concur is FIS. This is Financial Integration Services. This is something a lot of us are going to get certified on here soon. Like I said, it's somewhat of a new product for SAP Concur, and this allows real-time integration of that SAE data that now is a nightly process in Concur. So we can literally schedule every hour to pull SAP Concur for expense reports and push it back over to Costpoint to create vouchers automatically. Okay, so now I'm actually going to walk through a demo, kind of show you behind the scenes what the product looks like here. I am in our demo Costpoint system here at NeoSystems. And again, we did a couple things with this. We added some new screens for initial setup that we need for Concur, and we actually added some fields to current screens. Extensibility is what allows us to do this. And extensibility, again, looks and feels exactly like a normal Costpoint screen. Those of you that don't have this in your system now, you'll notice these screens here. These are all Costpoint extensibility screens we added as part of the Concur Connector application. We have some basic screens that are part of it, and we have some customized screens. We had some customers that used ref IDs and Costpoint versus the normal way that we kind of laid out the connector. So we can do that customization as well, in addition to the basic functionality that we have. So these screens, again, which are subject to the normal security controls in Costpoint, various groups that you would set up would have the access to these screens. So all the configuration screens we have grouped under general ledger controls. We kind of saw this as like a controller level person in an organization would have access to these screens. And they consist of the following three main screens. The first one being the configuration for the client. This has various information, a bunch of gobbledygook that no one really cares about from the front end of how to communicate with Concur. These are using modern web authentication technologies, secure OAuth 2 for those of you with the technical bent, which all the latest web services out there use. So very secure communications methodology. But we store in this screen various defaults, what your system looks like, any kind of tokens that we need to communicate with it, where we want to store API and secure file transfer data in alternate file locations. We have a screen here that maps what the SAE can be different for every client, and different things can be in different fields. So we actually have the ability to customize that where your certain key data might be located. We also provide default information. So again, especially for large organizations that may have thousands of users, many of them might be in the same group and have the same ledger code in Concur, use the same list. So we provide some defaults here that I'll get into in a second as to how those are applied. Another screen I want to talk about, and this is a key one, is Concur account mapping. Most of you on this call are probably Costpoint users. So you will see that what I have here is a mapping between sorry, I'm trying to see if we are we getting sound on? I just saw some chats coming through. We're not getting sound.
Yeah, we're working on that on the back end, Brad. We're going to try to get that fixed right away.
Okay, should I keep moving forward?
Yeah, you can go and continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the main mapping that drives the interface from Concur into Costpoint is this mapping screen, where we take Concur expense codes that you have set up in your system. You may work with NeoSystems or SAP in particular, and on how your Concur expense codes are configured. And we use the logical grouping in Costpoint, which is the PAG, the project account group. The PAG kind of tells the flavor of the project. And if those of you familiar with PAGs, they kind of categorize the accounts that a project can charge to. So for us, it made sense that you would use a Costpoint expense code and map it with a PAG to a specific GL account number. And this is the main mapping screen that we use in Costpoint in order to create that AP voucher. This has been perfectly sufficient for most of our clients. We've had some clients that have had, like I said, customizable. They actually had the account built into the list in Concur. So we did a customized version of the Concur connector that supported that. But this is kind of how it comes out of the box. You will do this Concur expense code and PAG mapping to a specific Costpoint account ID. And we also use this list to do validation in Concur. One of the big advantages of Concur that many of you that use it know is Concur has a lot of audit functionality that you can put in place. So you can actually look for various things on expense reports. If certain over dollar thresholds or combination of charges are invalid, but we also can prevent employees from charging certain types of projects if it's available on their list to certain types of expense codes. The common thing that I use for this is like alcohol, right? So alcohol might be able to be charged to a G&A project or an unallowable project or something like that, but you'll never want it charged on a direct project. So we can actually use this combination of Concur expense codes and PAGs to actually limit that and throw errors to the employees if they were to try to charge alcohol to a direct project, for example. So other screens that we have here where we actually do the interface with Concur, both the push and the pull, the import and the export, is the accounts payable area. So under the accounts payable interfaces where you normally would find the preprocessor screen from Costpoint, you'll see a new export and import Concur expense data. Going to the export screen here, this screen, again, it looks very similar to any other Costpoint screen you'll see, but you obviously won't see this unless you have the Concur connector deployed. This screen manages all of our import and export to Concur. You'll notice along the bottom here that it has various subscreens like other Costpoint screens do. So we can see what kind of exports that we've done before, and we log all the data and errors that come through with that. So we see some various exports that occurred, any errors that occurred, and any successes that occurred. And we do the same thing for the employee export here as well. So you always have a history of what kind of exports occurred. And then we have all the list files, and this is almost identical format that you're going to find in the Concur files natively that are used by a lot of people that don't have an automated interface. So the 305 file, like I mentioned, is a employee file that does the initial employee load. You'll see the 305 file here, the list file that shows what employees can charge, what they're able to charge on their system. And then various other files that we support. We support a 350, which is a travel addendum file. We support a 710, which is a cost object approver file. So if you have a workflow where you want a PM approving a expense report, we can accommodate that. And then the 760 deletes those people out of it as well. So all of that data is contained here on the export Concur expense data screen. And we can automate, again, the API push to export projects and employees to Concur. This is an action, looks like any other Costpoint screen, but we have these specific actions that'll refresh all the data here or export the projects or employees to Concur, the list or the employee file, via an API. So you're not exchanging flat files, you're not using the FTP functionality. This is doing a direct push to Concur. And again, being an action in Costpoint, we can schedule this on a regular basis, however often is needed. The rest of these functionalities will actually create a file for you. So a list file, a 305 file, a 710, let's say if you use those, it will actually create that file and put it in an alternate file location for you. Again, as I mentioned earlier, NeoSystems does offer the ability, if you want to automate that push, we can grab that file via web services from your system and put it onto the FTP site so that, again, even that process is completely manual. But if something catastrophic does happen and you lose connectivity, you can always generate these files to an alternate file location and push it over to Concur and import it manually as you would normally. The two screens that we alter in Concur, the first one is the project master screen. So we actually just add a little flag here to mark projects as Concur projects. We do actually accommodate the ability, if you have a license for time and expense and you are able to choose expense project or time and expense project, we do offer that option. Those who don't have that license, you can just use this Concur project checkbox. A lot of customers that are deployed to the Deltek Cloud get that license, even though they might not use expense, so they can just use this built-in flag without having to have anything added to this screen at all. So we have certain criteria by default. The way we do it, and we can always customize this to users, is any active project that allows charging that is marked as a Concur project or an expense project or time and expense project, we will export over to Concur to be used by the employees. The other screen we modify here is the employee master screen. So you will see that there is a new tab that none of you, unless you are a current Concur Connect user, see, called Concur Info. So this screen contains basically all the information we need to know about employees to interface with Concur. We mark them as Concur users, and then this is all the basic information we need to know about the employee, their login ID, the Concur group they belong to, the ledger code, etc. You'll notice that a lot of these are empty because we use defaults for almost all of these. For example, we'll use the email address that's on the address contact tab as the Concur login. We'll use those default group and ledger codes that I showed on the configuration screen for those defaults. We'll use for the expense and request approver, the default manager and the salary details tab. But any of those default values you can override in this screen if you want. A lot of customers might have a certain manager on the salary detail screen that is not supposed to be the one that approves expense reports or requests for whatever reason. So you can always override that here or any of these other functionalities. And then the final screen we add here over in the accounts payable interfaces area is import Concur expense data. So this screen is where we pull through the standard accounting extract and actually can create vouchers. So you'll notice down here, this is, again, SAE, standard accounting extract focused. So we show all of the batches. Every time this is run, it's polling SAP in real time for any batches that are sitting out there, the number of records that might be in that file. And we're always keeping track for you of the batch ID numbers and the batch dates. We also post this information in the voucher itself. You can always backtrack to it. So this screen will actually take that data, process it through. Again, you can create either an AP preprocessor file or load it directly into the AP voucher screen. And you'll get all the log data here. If you have any errors, and using web services is almost exactly like using the front end of Costpoint. So you will get the normal errors if you have account or link problems. If you have anything else that's invalid, you'll see these errors until you actually get the AP vouchers processed, and then you'll get a result of exactly the voucher numbers that were just processed. So with that, I think I'm about out of time. So I will pass it back over to Don here in just a second. If anyone wants additional information, please feel free to reach out to me. Contact me at your convenience, and certainly we're always happy to go a more in-depth demo. The last question I get a lot is how long does this take to get in place? And we usually say 6 to 8 weeks. We have deployed it on multiple hosting providers, including the Deltek Cloud. And that's about the time frame I would plan, 6 to 8 weeks. So please reach out if you want any other information or any kind of more detailed demo. Okay, Don, I think I will pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Brad. And speaking from experience, Concur Expense is a fantastic spend management solution, and the Costpoint Connector has really helped out a number of our clients to connect those two systems.